It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
Okay, question from Ryan. He says, I am 26 years old and I just quit my job, but I already have another one lined up. What should I do with my old employer 401k? I have contributed to a Roth 401k, but now am I able to move this to my Roth IRA? Or is there another option, Brian? What should he do?
Yeah, I mean, it's this is a good question. By the way, what does create a little bit of uniqueness here is that it's a Roth element versus traditional savings, because, Roth grows tax-free, which is always really powerful. First thing I always look at is I say you have several options here. You can leave it where you are. You don't have to take the money. Once the money is over, I think these numbers still hold up. I'd have to see if they've been indexed, but I think it's around $5,000. Once your account value is over $5,000, your employer, your past employer can't just kick you out and write you a check. Because that is, if your account's just $1,000 or so, you do have to be very careful that they don't just cash you out. You get the penalty and all the other things that come with it. So, but I think assuming that Ryan has over, a few $1,000 in this thing, he's going to have the option first to stay put. And why would you do that? You might want to stay put if you have like a big provider, like say a Vanguard, a Fidelity, a Charles Schwab, somebody who's already low cost, has great diversification options. You could just stay where you are. Now, there's a downside to that, and the fact that what if you don't like dealing with your former employer's HR department? Because you do have some strings attached to a former life now. And maybe you just, that's too much to overcome. But, I'll leave it to those two, the pluses and minuses. But just also know you have the option. You could roll it into an IRA, as you mentioned. And what I like about IRAs is that you do control where you keep it. Like if you wanted to go take advantage of those three big custodians that are low cost historically, like the Schwabs, the Fidelities, and the Vanguards, you could then roll that money into a Roth IRA. You're completely independent of your employer, and that's good. And then you have control of, if you need to do any unique things with this, you have all the ability to do things with. And then the third option is you roll it into your new employer. Maybe that's where you come from a very expensive employer, where it's like an insurance provider or some sub-account structure where it's really expensive when you look at all the fees that you're being subjected to. But now you're going to a big company that has access to that Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard type 401k. If you want to keep your life simple, because, an IRA, because you're going to have your 401k with your new employer, if you'd rolled it into a Roth IRA, you have a separate IRA that you're now disclosing on your annual taxes and stuff. You could keep your life really simple and just roll it into the new 401k provider, assuming it's one of these low costs. It's really on you. I think but you make sure you don't skip the step of the due diligence of figuring out, hey, what do I actually pay for my plan? How good are the investment options within my plan? Meaning that, do I have access to index funds? Do I have access to different asset classes? Because that's the problem I see with a lot of 401ks. They just have access to bonds, large cap stocks, and that's where it stops. Whereas maybe you want some international, maybe you want some real estate, maybe you want some small company stocks and index funds in there. All these things go into your decision-making matrix. Mm-hmm. And then if you'll go through this step, I think you'll end up in a really good place.
Yeah. I love it. And then it goes without saying, make sure you're jumping right on that new employer 401k match too, if you have that. So thanks so much for your question, Ryan. That was great.